In this clip, I'm going to be sharing some culturally affirming books that I have kept and been collecting for my 8-year old daughter to instill a sense of self love, acceptance, belonging, being a child of the diaspora, as a black girl with African roots, learning about who they are at a really young age, and just kind of sharing my take on why it's so important to affirm our children from a really young age. I feel that there's just a grave importance when it comes to black girls specifically in, showing them images of themselves in the most simplest of ways, seeing themselves in scenarios where they are not adultified, where they have been seen and kept as that youthful child with imagination, being seen and affirming themselves with not having to be knowing of all things, with being able to be innocent, with being able to not know what to do, and to accept their child nature. I feel like, I take very seriously imagery when it comes to my daughter, and being sure that these adultified modalities that are being forced against our children are completely removed from their psyche, because it definitely is a detriment for their mental health. It is also very hard as a parent if you yourself, are esteemed in these practices and you find yourself in a situation where the ladder of the parenting scale falters on that end, and you have to deal with people who are anti-African, even as a black person in the diaspora, teaching your children or making statements to your children that they're not African, or just trying to belittle their ambitions of root connecting, when you know that for yourself it is something that is important that you have instilled in them and they are proud of it. And then when they go and share it with other people, they are torn down or made fun of for loving simple things that are, like I said, culturally affirming. I do share a lot here on my channel about the things that I have done to culturally affirm my daughter in loving herself and understanding her African roots, understanding who our people were, understanding what slavery was, understanding how we became to be who we are, and knowing that, it is not a bad thing for them to love themselves. It is just very difficult when you have to teach them against people who look like them, to not be critical of what they are proud of, especially if they weren't raised with that self-love or self-pride-ship. I think that it's very important for them to be able to always be rejuvenated and re-quenched with these visuals, even, being young or, going into an older age, even for teenagers, because they're going to be in these environments where people are already tearing them down, and to be torn down by someone who looks like you, by someone who, is not as connected to their roots as you, is definitely, debilitating for black children. And I think that it is so important to make, a point to reinstill in them that it doesn't matter what other people think. You don't have to ask permission to be who you are. It is not up to them. They were not, at the table when, God created you. And for them to tell you that what you enjoy and what you like about your Africanness is not them, or to tell them that they're not African when that is exactly who they are, it's definitely a very evil game to play with the psyche of a child, and especially a black girl, because it definitely cuts off your connectivity to belonging. And, you stray away from what is indicative of you, and you seek these outside sources of validation, thinking that that is going to suffice. But as they grow, they will start to learn that they are being taught how to assimilate to another person and to what another person is. And I feel like it is very unfair, as a parent, to be that negative driving force in their life, to disconnect them from their ancestorship. I feel like there's no age that you have to be in order to connect with your ancestorship. And I take that very seriously when it comes to my daughter. So these are just a lot of things that I've instilled in her, images that I have shown to her about blackness. Regardless of if we are lighter skinned individuals, that doesn't mean that we can't, love our darker and more richly melanated brothers and sisters, because as I've stated on multiple occasions, when it comes to my specific bloodline, I came from a darkly melanated woman, and it doesn't matter if I have lighter skin, I am still African rooted, and I am still who I am and who I was created to be by God, and no one has the control over who you're gonna be. So I definitely feel that this is a topic that will definitely have to be more delved into here on my channel, just explaining why it is so important for them to see themselves, why it is so important to equip them with the skills to know what to say to someone who tells them they're not African, or not to eat African food, or not to be who they are at their root, because they don't have that kind of sequence in their upbringings to truly love who they are. So I feel like it is just really important. I'm really adamant about giving my daughter the truth and not teaching her to assimilate to what other people want. So this is just, kind of a walk into another subject that I will have here on my channel. As I've stated on many occasions, I do have a lot of doll theory, a lot of tools that I've used to keep my daughter in the know about who she is and to love herself, and to learn how to navigate this world when they are trying to break Black girls away from their ancestral roots. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give this video 2 thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more DIYs, recipes, and reviews.